Welcome back, everybody. These are the best horror films of 1993. All right, let's crank it out. Let's see what films were scaring audiences worldwide, cable TV, made for TV, and in the movie theaters. All right, let's check out all the horror films that came out in 1993 that scared you. Most of these you're going to love. Some of these you may not have heard of, but I guarantee you we're going to cover all the films, all the horror films of 1993. Let's check them out right now. Amityville: A New Generation. An old mirror from the Amityville house finds its way into a young photographer's home, where the demonic presence soon manifests itself to cause more death and mayhem. Amityville: A New Generation. Arcade. A virtual reality game begins taking over the minds of teenagers. I love it! Arcade. So if you like arcades and you want to go back in time, check out the arcades and the special effects of 1993 horror. Attack of the 50-Foot Woman. When an abused heiress grows to giant size because of her encounter with aliens, she decides to get revenge on her cheating husband and those who annoy her. Comedy, sci-fi, and horror. Bedevil. 3 Australian stories of the supernatural are recounted in this anthology. Horror. So you got 3 separate horror stories in this movie. Bedevil. Bloodstone Subspecies 2. Killers of vampires hunt a particularly bad one, with a folklore scholar and her sister back in Transylvania. Bloodstone Subspecies 2 fantasy, horror, and thriller. Body Bags. Body Bags is a 1993 anthology hosted horror movie with John Carpenter as the coroner. So if you're a fan of John Carpenter and all his work, check out Body Bags. This is body horror, comedy, horror, sci-fi, and thriller. Body Snatchers. A teenage girl and her father discover alien clones are replacing humans on a remote U.S. military base in Alabama. Body horror, horror, and sci-fi. Body Snatchers. This is creepy and good. Body Melt. See all these movies with the word body? Residents of peaceful Pebbles Court, Holmesville, are being used unknowingly as test experiments for a new body drug that causes rapid body decomposition. Ugh. Body Melt. Cannibal, the musical. The sole survivor of an ill-fated mining expedition tells how his taste for gold was replaced by that of human flesh. Cannibal, the musical. Remember Dinosaur? Now we have Carnosaur. A genetically manipulated and very hungry dinosaur escapes from a bioengineering company and wreaks havoc on the local desert town. B-horror, dark comedy, horror, and sci-fi. Children of the Corn 2, The Final Sacrifice, with Malachi. A journalist and his son travel to Nebraska to investigate the mysterious town of Gatlin, where, unbeknownst to them, a murderous cult of children are still waiting in the cornfields. Kronos. A mysterious device designed to provide its owner with eternal life resurfaces after 400 years, leaving a trail of destruction in its path. Dark comedy, dark fantasy, folk horror, and horror. Dark Universe. On its way back to Earth, the space shuttle Nautilus passes through a cloud of alien spores, causing its sole occupant, astronaut Steve Thomas, to transform into a bloodthirsty monster. Dark Universe. Dark Waters. A girl travels to an island after the death of her father to find out why the father funded a monastery on the island. Body horror, drama, horror, and mystery. Dark Waters. The Dark Half. A writer's fictional alter ego wants to take over his life at any price. Slasher horror, horror, mystery, and thriller. The Dark Half. Next up we have is Darkness. A small community is besieged by vampires. I love it. After he watches friends ravage in a convenience store, a lone avenger goes off to do battle with the undead. Darkness. This movie is cool. If you love vampires, you'll love Darkness. Dracula Rising. Witness the romance and tragedy of one man's undying passion that led him to sell his soul. In this epic horror, Vlad Dracula exchanges salvation for immortality. Horror and romance. Croman's Dracula. We love it. We love it. Dracula Rising. Drag. The world is dead. A lone woman, Victoria, struggles valiantly to stay alive on this desolate planet once known as Earth. Ed and his dead mother. A mourning son makes a deal to reanimate his mother 1 year after her death, but things take an unexpected turn. Comedy horror. Ed and his dead mother. Fire in the Sky. An Arizona logger mysteriously disappears for 5 days in an alleged encounter with a flying saucer in 1975. His co-workers endure ridicule and contempt as they are wrongly accused of murder. Full Eclipse. The LA Police Department have a special team of officers with a talent for reducing big-time crime. A team leader has an excellent track record for crime reduction in other big cities, but his methods are unconventional when he encounters a werewolf. Gray Knight. Slave traders bring back an evil voodoo entity that is accidentally freed by the Confederate Army during the Civil War. Horror and war. So now they're facing creatures in the Civil War. I love it. Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2. The United Nations assembles the ultimate weapon to defeat Godzilla, while scientists discover a fresh tetragon egg on a remote Japanese island. Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2. Head above water. There we have Einmar and Bjorn leave Lean on the island for a fishing trip when her former lover Gaut appears drunk and falls asleep in her bed. Dark comedy, horror, comedy, and thriller. Hell Spawn. Mick and Jack are asked to house sit for a relative in a small town. They soon realize that there is a mysterious killer and grave robber plaguing the town. Hellspawn. Horror. Diabolical Inheritance. A diabolic clown doll murders people that are cruel to him. So picture a doll that's a clown, and you're mean to the doll, and then the clown doll kills people. Hocus Pocus. A teenage boy named Max and his little sister move to Salem, where he struggles to fit in before awakening a trio of diabolical witches that were executed in the 17th century. Fairy tale, comedy, family, fantasy, and horror. Horror Story. The film is based on the book of the same title, who squeezed adventure, love, horror, and other parallel episodes into what is called decadent reading for maids. Dark comedy, parody, adventure, and horror. I was a teenage serial killer. Mary was a good girl until she decided to kill all the sexist pigs. She, of course, encounters many of which and enjoys killing them. Comedy horror. I was a teenage serial killer. Jack be nimble, Jack be quick, Jack jump over the candlestick. Jack and Dora, abandoned by their parents as babies, are desperate to find each other after years of adoption. Dora, whose life has been somewhat better, returns for revenge. Dark comedy, horror, and thriller. Jason Goes to Hell. Jason, Mother is speaking to you. Serial killer Jason Voorhees' supernatural origins are revealed. Body horror, dark fantasy, and slasher. We love Jason Goes to Hell. We love it. Leprechaun. I love Leprechaun. And, what's her name? Jennifer Aniston's Big Nose. An evil, sadistic leprechaun goes on a killing rampage in search of his beloved pot of gold. Nobody likes this movie because of the leprechaun. They all watch it because of Jennifer Aniston's big nose before her nose job. Little Devils, The Birth. Evil scientists discover ancient mud from hell, becomes possessed, and creates miniature gargoyles. Little Devils, The Birth. Comedy and horror. Maniac Cop 3, Badge of Silence. A priest practicing the voodoo arts resurrects Matt Cordell, who takes this badge and comes back from the dead to do his bidding. Slasher horror, supernatural horror. We love it. We love it. Man's Best Friend. A genetically engineered dog escaped from the science facility where it was created. A family takes it as unaware of its deadly instincts, which soon emerge. Comedy, horror, sci-fi, and thriller. Next thing we have is a classic horror film, Midnight Kiss. A modern vampire is killing people and sucking blood in the city. The police can't stop him because of his wits and strength. Horror. Midnight Kiss. I love vampire movies. I like vampire movies more than werewolf movies. Monolith. Two cops investigating the murder of a young boy become involved in a very secret project involving alien life. Needless to say, the authorities don't want them to stick their nose into this. Monolith. Action, sci-fi, horror, and thriller. Monstry. After an accident in a nuclear plant, strange things begin to happen. Animals like rats become bigger and bigger, attacking human beings and other weird occurrences. Monstry. Necronomicon, Book of Dead. Lovecraft visualizes 3 stories in Necronomicon: the drowned, the cold, and whispers, and bringing a dead wife and child back to life. So 3 stories here. Needful Things. A mysterious new shop opens in a small town, which always seems to stock the deepest desires of each shopper, with a price far heavier than expected. Crime, drama, fantasy, and horror. We love it. Night Terrors. A woman visiting her father in Egypt becomes involved with Marquis de Sade's descendant and his terrifying cult. Horror. Night Terrors. Look at that movie poster. It's riveting. I love it. Night Trap. A New Orleans cop tries to track down and stop a vicious and demonic killer who has sold his soul to the devil for invulnerability and immortality. Horror and thriller. Night Trap. Project Vampire. A vampire scientist physically charges the longevity serum he sells across the world and making all those who use it into vampires loyal to him. Project Vampire. Next that we have is Psycho Cop Returns. Psychopath cop decides to kill everyone who he thinks has broken the law. So rather than arresting and giving tickets, if you break the law for jaywalking, whatever, he's going to kill you. Dark comedy, slasher horror. Puppet Master 4. We love all the Puppet Masters. A young scientist and his friends, upon being attacked by demons, are protected by a gang of animated puppets. We love the puppets. Fantasy, horror, and sci-fi. Return of the Living Dead 3. I love that girl. Isn't she hot? Having recently witnessed the horrific results of a top-secret project to bring the dead back to life, a distraught youth performs the operation on his girlfriend after she's killed in a motorcycle accident. We love it. Scary Tales. A faceless storyteller relates 3 tales of terror. An ancient evil necklace gradually takes possession of a man's soul. A guy goes off the deep end after discovering his wife's infidelity. And a man becomes so obsessed with the video game, he can't stop playing it. Shram. A serial killer lies dying in his own blood. Horrific memories of his miserable life, of paranoia, self-harm, and rejection flash before his eyes. A tragic look into the mind of a serial killer. Shram. Horror. Skeeter. As a result of a corrupt businessman's illegal toxic waste dumping, a small desert town is beset by a deadly swarm of huge, bloodthirsty mutant mosquitoes. I love it. Action, horror, sci-fi, and thriller. Skinner. A decent-looking lad, Dennis Skinner, rents an apartment in a couple's house. At night, he roams the streets with a goodie bag filled with knives looking for victims to skin. Slasher horror. So here's a goody two-shoes killing people. Slaughter of the Innocents. A seasoned FBI agent's child genius son assists him on catching a child killer, a schizophrenic Moab nutcase who believes he's been chosen by God to be a new Noah. Space Zombie Bingo. The US military along with the general population are trying to rid the country of alien zombie invaders. Parody, comedy, horror, and sci-fi. We love it. Next up we have is Step Monster. Todd Daugherty has an imagination driven by comic book. So when he's accused his soon-to-be stepmother of being a monster, no one believes him. Comedy horror. Step Monster. The mother is a monster. The Dark. Something is alive beneath the surface of the graveyard. Something with the power to destroy and the power to heal. One man, a cop, is determined to kill his mysterious creature. Horror and sci-fi. The Dark. The Mummy Lives. A mummy returns from the dead and becomes obsessed with a woman, which he thinks is the reincarnation of his dead lover, Havanaptra. The Mummy Lives. Remember the mummy? Havanaptra. Alright, I'm going to say this word. Manchichurachucha. When a forbidden room in an old bungalow is unbolted, the spirit of a vengeful dancer is unleashed. Manichucha-cha-cha-cha. Ha-cha-cha-cha-cha. Comedy, horror, mystery, and thriller. Obviously, it was a foreign film. The Tower. A man working at an ultra-modern corporate building finds himself and a colleague trapped inside with a homicidal security system hell-bent on killing them both. Horror and sci-fi. The Tower. See, aren't these movies great for 1993? Movies you don't remember. The Washing Machine. A police detective investigates the murder of a man found dismembered in a washing machine and is drawn into a web of deceit and murder by the dead man's lover. The Washing Machine. So people are killing people inside of a washing machine. The Chill Factor. Chill out. A group of snowmobilers become trapped on a lake and holed up in an abandoned camp. What they don't know is that the camp was once used as a satanic cult for its rituals. Supernatural horror and horror. The Neighbor. Everybody has one. The Neighbor. Boy loves mother who dies giving birth. Boy kills baby brother. 50 years later, boy, now doctor, sells a neighboring house cheaply to a pregnant woman, and the cycle repeats itself. The Neighbor. The Tommyknockers. I love the Tommyknockers. The small town of Haven becomes a hotbed of inventions, all run by a strange green power device. Supernatural horror and sci-fi. The Tommyknockers was a TV miniseries, which was riveting. The Nostril Picker. Yes, look at the picture. The Nostril Picker. Loner turns into a girl to lure and kill other girls. How fitting. So I guess this was early transgender back in 1993. The Nostril Picker. The Scary Movie. A creepy concoction of a ghostly story with little plot other than spooky sound and visuals. Horror short. The Scary Movie. Ticks. Body horror, horror, and sci-fi. A group of troubled teenagers are led by social workers on a California wilderness retreat, not knowing that the woods they are camping in have become infested by mutated, blood-sucking ticks. I love the movie Ticks. Ticks is awesome. To Sleep with a Vampire. Scott Valentine is a vampire who is torn between his need to feed and his desire to learn about the world of humans. Scott Valentine, you would know, was Nick on Family Ties. Hey. Remember Family Ties? That was Nick. Tomcat, Dangerous Desires. Jackie, a scientist involved in genetic research, meets Tom, a young modern dancer who is suffering from a degenerative nerve disease. Horror and thriller. Tomcat, Dangerous Desires. Trauma. Slasher horror. A young man tries to help a teenage girl find the serial killer who murdered her parents before the killer comes after them. We love it. Trauma. See, these movies are awesome. They're out there. You gotta look for them. The Eight Immortals Restaurant. The Untold Story. Macau cops begin to suspect the man running a pork buns restaurant of murder after tracing the origin of a case full of chopped up human remains. Ugh, gross. Serving up food as humans. Warlock, the Armageddon. All the Warlock movies are awesome. An order of druids train their children to battle an evil warlock determined to unleash Satan upon the world by bringing a collection of 5 mystic rune stones together. Warlock is awesome. When a Stranger Calls Back. A young babysitter all alone in the house with 2 children asleep above is bothered by a stranger. Unfortunately, the phone's dead. Horror, mystery, and thriller. Now imagine making that. This is 1993. Imagine making that now with cell phones. Witchboard 2. A beautiful young woman starts receiving messages through a Ouija board, claiming to be from the former occupant of her apartment. Horror and mystery. Witchboard 2. Witchcraft 5. Dance with the Devil. An evil warlock takes over a rock club. He uses beautiful, large-breasted, and frequently nude women to try and collect enough souls so that he may be able to bring Satan to earth. And lastly, we have Zombie Bloodbath. A meltdown at a nuclear power plant turns a bunch of folks into lethal, shambling, flesh-eating zombies who go on a gory rampage. Zombie Bloodbath. Those were all the horror films that came out in 1993. Those were the best horror films of 1993. For me, probably my favorite horror film of 1993, not because it was scary, but because it was a fun, where you want to goof on it and laugh, but it was, supposed to be scary, was Ticks. I think it had Alfonso Ribera and, alright, anyways, I forgot the name of I have to look it up. But anyways, look up Ticks. Ticks is a fun movie. It's corny, it's cheesy. There's some bad acting, but it's just one of those cult fun movies. Ticks. Check out Ticks, which came out in 1993. What were some of your favorite horror movies of that year? Obviously, there were a lot of foreign movies that I touched on. Like I told you, these are every single horror film that was released in 93. We're including other countries, made-for-TV, miniseries, cable TV, and obviously the drive-ins in the theaters. If there's any title I may have left out, don't come for me and say, oh, you forgot this. Oh, you forgot that. No. If I forgot a title, okay, we're all human. It's okay. But no, let me know in the comments below which title I left out so that I can do a future video on those titles. All right? Those were the best horror films of 93. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for the best horror films of 1994. The 90s were good. I still prefer the 80s, but the 90s had some really, really good movies. So let's check out, in the next video, the best horror films of 1994. Thanks everybody for checking this out, and I'll see you all in the next video.